We have no apologies for absence. Sorry about the mic, having just reminded everyone else. Item number 2 on the agenda are the minutes from the last meeting on the 23rd of November. Hopefully everyone's had sight of that. There were some questions to be responded to, and everyone should have received an email from Ellie Starling, who was representing Simon on the last occasion, with a response to those questions. Has anyone got any comments on those or anything else in the minutes? No. In that case, can we have a proposer for the minutes, please? Right, Councillor Ball to propose, Councillor Ruffles to second. All in favour, please. Councillor Newton was absent, but everyone else is in favour. Thank you. Item number 3, declarations of interest. To receive any members' declarations of interest. There are the usual ones about membership of town and parish councils, but apart from that, no other declarations of interest. Thank you. Number 4, chairman's announcements, microphones, which I seem to be the biggest culprit. Right. As I said, this is the last committee meeting of the administration, and I want to say a big thank you to all the members and officers who have been proactive and supportive of the council and the staff. I know some of us may not be returning as councillors, or if we are not, may possibly not to this committee, but it's important that we thank everyone. I know most of members of this committee, except Councillor Dumont and I, who were the newcomers. I think all the rest of you have served on East Herts Council for many, many years, and you've shown selfless commitment to both the council and the community. You've given of your time and skills voluntarily and generously, and we're very grateful. So it's thanks to people like Angela and Stan, Michael and Peter and Sally that the residents in East Hertfordshire have the highest quality service, and that the officers feel supported, and we owe you all a great debt of gratitude. Thank you very much indeed. You need to put your microphone on, Councillor McMullen.
I'll learn. I'll say it again then. Thank you very much on behalf of all of us for the way you've conducted the HR meeting. It's been most enjoyable and most interesting. Thank you very much.
That's very kind. Thank you very much. Oh, Councillor Alder.
Can I second that, because you've been so gracious as chairman?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, no, thank you. It should be me thanking you all, not you thanking me, but thank you very much. I'd also like to say, I know we all would like to say a big thank you to our officers. Thank you, Simon, very much indeed. We do appreciate you. But to all our officers within the Human Resources Department and the Democratic Services, because they've all put in a huge amount of hard work and efforts on behalf of East Herts. And I know both departments are classed as back office and rarely get the praise they deserve. So thank you very much. And I hope you both pass on our thanks to the rest of your department. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you, Peter. You're so good being here all the time. Thank you. Right. And that is it on my announcement, and we'll move on to item number 5, the Health and Safety Committee, the minutes from the 8th of November. And these are just for receiving and noting. They're on item number 5 from page 16. Have we got any comments or questions? I mean, we are just receiving them. No.
No.
Right, well, those are received and noted. Thank you. Item number. Yes, Councillor Pauls.
Was there also a meeting, and the minutes are not produced, on the 7th of February that was scheduled?
Yes, there was on the 7th. It's gone ahead.
Is it just that the minutes are not available yet?
Not at the moment.
Yeah.
No.
They were before the deadline for papers, were they? Thank you. That explains it. Item number 6, the Health and Safety Quarterly Review for the 3rd quarter. And this is page 21 to 35 on the agenda. Peter, thank you very much for the report, as always, very comprehensive. Right, any questions or comments, please? Councillor McMullen, your microphone is on. I don't know if you're talking to it. No. No questions, comments? No. So do we need to vote if there are no comments? We'll just receive them. Thank you very much. And now we're on to number 7, the human resources management statistics for the 3rd quarter. Simon, you talking to this? Peter, you're welcome to stay for the last meeting of the administration, but we'll understand if you want to leave. But thank you for all of your help this year and for the past 4 years. We really appreciated it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. So item 7 is the HR quarterly stats.
Do you want to speak or can we go straight to questions?
Yeah, if we can go straight to questions.
Okay. Page 36 about the vacancies. I know I've already raised this with you. There are a large number of posts outstanding for planning.
Yep.
This comes up every meeting, I know. Can you give us an update, please?
Yeah, pleased to report that the 13 jobs went live on February the 3rd. So that was Friday last week. This is the first launch, and the initial closing date for them is all the 3rd of March, but there's an actual ongoing closing date, meaning that applications can be considered as they come in. So as I say, there's 13 vacancies on there, 12 of which include the MFS. The only one that does, sorry, when I say the MFS, the market, sorry, I'm having trouble seeing this. Market supplements have been included on 12 of the vacancies, with the exception of the enforcement officer and the senior enforcement officer. The planning recruitment video and planning banner can be found on planning@eastharts.gov.uk. All roles are in planning jobs and on social media channels. We're also on the front cover and inside the page of Public Sector Today for the planning article, which circulates nationally to 25,000 professionals directly within the local government and public sector. And the vacancies are also within the South East Times, which circulates to a separate 33,500 people as well. So big campaign, really nice video on there. We've mentioned the video as well on the HR and payroll update report. It is worth logging onto our website and having a look, because it's not something we've done before, and it's quite powerful. And obviously we're using this market supplement, which is in line with what other councils are doing, and hopefully that will help us to recruit people into these positions. But yeah, it's all live now.
Thank you. Councillor Newton. And then Councillor Alder.
Just clarification, because you mentioned market supplement and I can't get my head around. Could you just clarify market supplement?
Yeah, so you'll note in the pay policy statement, I think it's section 7 from memory, but I can check that when we go through the actual pay policy statement. But where we have positions that we try to recruit and we're unable to fill, we've had the option in the pay policy statement to use a market supplement. What is a market supplement? It essentially means that you not only look at the grading of the job, but then you adjust it with a supplement to say what the market is actually paying. So the jobs are graded in line with our job evaluation scheme. So for example, it's a grade 10, but as well as it being a grade 10, then a supplement is added to that, which can go up or down in line with the market. So that's where the market supplement comes from. So what the criteria is that we have to have tried to recruit without the supplement and been unsuccessful before we're able to operate that. It's not something that East Harts Council does very often. In fact, this is one of the first times that we're using the market supplement, and it's just these planning jobs. And like I say, where we didn't have the evidence on the enforcement officer, it's not being used. So there has to be a chain to justify the market supplement.
Thank you. Councillor Alder.
Thank you, Chairman. My understanding was that if people expressed an interest in coming to work for the council, that they were going to be invited in to, if you like, to meet people and to be shown around. Did that happen, or is it just relying on the video? Because the video could be quite enticing and compelling, but it's seeing the individual that might be perhaps even more advantageous.
I really can't comment with 100% certainty on that council order, but the video does say come in and meet us, come and see us. So I believe there is an open offer, and if anyone asked if they wanted to come in, the arrangements would be made. So we're doing everything we can to encourage people to take an interest in East Herts, and the video is very much about the housing stock and how that differs and the interest that you may have in that type of housing stock compared to other areas. So I think it is a question of come and have a look, come and see what we're doing. But there isn't any set sort of days where people have been invited into that I'm aware of.
Thank you. My understanding was that if you've got applications, you would actually proactively contact them and invite them in rather than waiting for the person to see a video and think, well, that looks to be an interesting job, I'll apply. It's the other way round, us being more come in, giving personal invitation.
My understanding is that people are being shortlisted as they go. So as opposed to just waiting until the end of a closing date, if there's an application in there that looks positive, people are being asked to come in. I wasn't sure that was for a tour, as you've just described. I think that's to get on with interviewing them, because there are so many positions they're able to do that. So it's trying to make it a quick turnaround and make sure that people aren't lost to other organisations in the journey.
Thank you. Councillor Dumont and then Councillor Ruffles.
Thank you very much. I've got, I think, 3 questions. Do we do them all now or come back to them? Or they're only quick, hopefully. So one question is, I understand we don't have a grants officer at the moment. Is that planned a part recruitment, and would we know where we're at with that at the moment?
No, that role has been frozen at this stage in terms of the current transformation and savings agenda, and those duties have been moved into another area.
Thank you, that answers that question. The other question was, I think on page 43, where it talks about percentage of the workforce and how it's made up, and it refers to the census. I think some of these figures in 2011 and other to NOMIS in 2019. I just wonder when the census figures, when do they next get updated, and what is NOMIS?
No, if I refer you down to the equalities implications section, what we have said is that the census data has now just come out. We'd finished the report at that point. So that in the next report, you will see the latest census status on those areas. So it has, they came out in the last 2 weeks, essentially. Yeah.
So we'll see them, yeah, because obviously it's quite out, they're quite.
Yeah, so we previously, when it wasn't available, looked for what else there was, which is where we got the NOMIS data from, but there wasn't anything on the other areas other than the census, but the census got released, as I say, in the last 2 weeks.
I think just something out of interest in terms of training. I think it refers to training on page 42, and looks like lots of training going on and lots of uptake from staff as well. I was just wondering, how often do staff get cyber security training in the council? Is that something that is annual, or?
It's not an annual requirement, no. The cyber security is led by IT, really. At the moment, they're putting in new systems. So I honestly can't comment on when the next program will be rolled out. It's not an annual program.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Yeah.
Just something that I think the way the world's moving and the way that cyber threats are increasing, could it be something that the council at some stage looks at to make sure that people?
I've got a feeling there is some online training on the intranet there, because I've done it, and I think
I've done it myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just interested how often it is, because it changes if the threat moves.
Absolutely.
The threat is increasing, and we are a public authority, and we are likely to be a target.
And as have other local authorities.
So it was something I wanted to sort of get.
I know that IT have put a paper together on new software that they're looking at, and I would imagine as part of that there'll be some training provided as well. That came up in the leadership team on Tuesday this week, sorry, so yeah. But I will inquire with IT on whether we can roll out some further cybersecurity training, you know, red flags, those sorts of things. I've done it myself. I do know what you're referring to.
Thank you. Councillor Ruffles.
I'm on page 40, Chairman, the long-term absence, and it's paragraph 3310. And I think I know the answer because we've been here before quite a lot of times, concerned about, not in a sense the long-term absence in itself, but about the cause of those absences and whether there's more we should be doing there. And I suppose occupational health and the employee assistance program, we're told people are offered support, but I just really wonder whether Simon can assure us that, you know, we're pushing for that support strongly enough, and whether really there is any common factor, I expect there isn't, that we should, as employers, have in mind about the cause rather than the care.
Are we particularly referring to stress in terms of the list there?
Stress is because it's the largest number, but I would have thought that possibly the acute medical condition, but certainly mental health and muscular back pain may well be, could be possibly something which we're responsible for in duty of care before the onset of the conditions.
Yeah, I mean, your first point about occupational health being essential is a fair one, and people on long-term sick are referred to occupational health as standard. So it's not something that people are just encouraged to go to. Obviously, somebody could refuse when I say that, but yeah, no, you are expected to go to occupational health, and occupational health will involve specialist reports and speaking to the actual individual's consultant. I wanted to highlight stress, and you may remember when we approved the updated absence management policy that we include a stress risk assessment in there from the health and safety exec, and that is actually a very useful tool. So you can't force somebody to go to the EAP. It is well signposted, and certainly when anyone's off, it's highlighted in the letter, you know, the details of the scheme. With stress, we will support managers to carry out a stress risk assessment. And as I say, with occupational health, they will write to the specialist where they need to ensure that they're supporting. And I have known occupational health to suggest alternative methods that the own GP hasn't come out with, so that, you know, there's more support for people as a result of being in employment with occupational health and with the tools we've got than you would get outside of employment.
Thank you. Councillor Newton.
I asked this question because I happen to be sitting in a clinic watching a lady in reception, this is the NHS, complaining about her seat and her bad back. Because when you're waiting for hours for somebody to see, not me, fortunately, somebody else, you hear all sorts of things. And it came to my mind, going back to 3.3.1, with people working from home, how are you able to assess their working environment, assess their seat, whether one officer said at the beginning of lockdown in 2020, I rather like my cupboard under the stairs. And so we have all been tremendously affected by the last 2.5 years. And there are still people who are still affected by the last 2.5 years, who are struggling back to what we term, I don't know, what is normality? That needs a new definition. But with muscular and back pain, I mean, how can you make sure that the person with muscular back pain, if when in the office has an appropriate chair, but is working from home in the cupboard, doesn't? That's a very simplistic picture I'm putting, but you can see where I'm coming from. Yeah.
More than happy with the question, Councillor Newton. We have carried out DSE assessment with each person that works from home is the first point. People were allowed to take, if they actually, where you have people that have a specialist chair, what we've done is we've allowed them to take their specialist chair home. People have been able to take appropriate up and down 5-lever chairs anyway. And then we've just commissioned a whole new set of new chairs, and we're decommissioning some of our old chairs. And what we've found is the standard of chairs now, we've got a better price than we previously had because we're using purchasing frameworks, whereas we weren't before. But actually the new modern chair is adjustable, so that people, even if they have a specialist need, are able to adjust it sufficiently, because obviously we've got more of a hot desking environment. There are still some specific workstations where people want to work permanent in the office and they've got a very set chair. But whereas I say they were working in a blended way, their specialist chair has gone home with them. And that was something we did during the pandemic in the first place, is we allowed people to take home the appropriate chairs. And we've also provided laptop docking stations so that things are raised, wrist pads, rest pads for the keyboard. So all of the things that you would get in the office have been provided for people to support them at home.
And just to conclude, therefore, have all the stresses, and there were stresses working from home, obviously not traffic stresses, but there were stresses working from home. Did anybody do any sort of analysis on the degree of stress from working at home to the benefits either being in-house or the benefits of not being in-house but working from home? Has anybody done any analysis about the whole experience?
You will have noted in the HR and payroll update report that there has been 160 responses to the blended work review. So most staff, if not all staff, do want to work in a blended way. Some would like to work more from home, I think is the honest answer. Personally speaking, I think I've said this before, and I think members of this committee recognise it, that blended is good because actually there is an opportunity for people to be isolated at home and not to have the same level of support. Personally speaking, I miss the everyone in the office together, and I think you do need to find some balance with that. So that's what we've tried to do with the blended work. I think it's an area that will develop over time, in my own honest opinion. I don't know whether you'll always get the most honest answer from everyone, because actually the work-life balance features high. So you could argue stress comes from different ways and different sources, doesn't it? So it's a hard one to actually determine, but the reviews have come in and it's generally been very supportive.
Thank you. Any other comments on this? Right. So do we need a proposer and second and vote on this? Because we've commented. Could we have a proposer for this, please? Councillor Alder, and a second. Councillor Ruffles again, and all in favour, please. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 8, the gender pay gap report, and that is on pages 46 to 68 of your agenda. Simon, do you want to talk to it, or should we move straight to questions?
We've got 2 recommendations for your consideration. So if I just point those out, is to note the gender pay gap report, and I can talk through some of the highlights first if you would like me to, and then secondly to consider the action plan for 23-24 and adding any further suggestions where you feel that there should be some revisions made. This report has been through the leadership team where those the action plan was strengthened. What you will note is that the gender pay gap has increased. The key headline, as it has been in previous years, is not because we don't have enough women in the organisation. It is because we have hardly any men in the lower quartiles, in our pay quartiles, and that has reduced this year down to 10% in quartile 4, has actually gone up slightly to 18% in quartile 3. But because of that tip, in fact, all quartiles are more dominated by women than they are by men, but the mean is much higher because of the disproportionate number of men that you have in the lower pay quartiles.
Thank you. Councillor Dumont.
Thank you. You might not know the answer to the question. But just on that, about having more women in the lower quartiles or a higher percentage, and I think on page 51, it says that is an unusual position. Is it different? I mean, would most local authorities be similar though? Or are we a different local authority?
The key difference with East Herts is that we don't have, because we've outsourced waste and we've outsourced leisure less so, but particularly waste, you would have more males on those lower paid jobs on the carts, etc. basically. And they're not included in our figures because they're outsourced. But public sector is more dominated by females than males. Yes.
That's the point I was getting at.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Alder.
Really, it's a supplementary to that question. In the sorry, the male element in that lower quartile, is that because they're heavy manual jobs, or is it because you haven't had women apply in that particular category?
Oh no.
And if you do, what do? Do you say to a woman you can't do that because you haven't got enough muscle, or what?
No, that I was referring to jobs that we don't actually have in the council, so I can't really comment, Councillor Alder. What I was saying is because we don't have those jobs, such as the waste type jobs or the grounds maintenance jobs in-house, where you may have more males doing that and they may be at more of a lower pay, having come from land-based industries. You know, horticulture doesn't pay very well as an industry, for example. What I'm saying is we don't have those jobs, which is partly why we have so few men in the lower quartile. So I can't really comment on why. I mean, we all would like to break stereotypes, and it's not to say that women only should work in customer services or in administration jobs, but I think what you do find is those jobs are quite often part-time, which it does say in the report. Therefore, women tend to stay in those jobs longer because it suits the needs in terms of potentially being the chief childcare provider. Again, not for me to say that as a woman's role, it's just what we've seen in terms of percentages. We have managed to attract more men into customer services recently, and I hope that continues. And what we've put in the action plan is that we're trying to have case studies. There's no reason why, but it is still sort of recognised that women will have more responsibility than men in the norm for childcare, and therefore potentially taking career breaks and all the rest of it, which does affect progression and potential ability to have a full-time job.
Thank you. I think on page 50, 3.13, I think it's really good that we can able to say we are confident that the gender pay gap does not stem from paying men and women differently for the same or equivalent work. That I think is very important. So I think we need to be proud of that. I know that we have worked long and hard on trying to get this ATS system. Just remind me what the acronym stands for.
Applicant tracking system.
Right.
It's just a recruitment product, basically.
So I know one of the key factors on it that you're very keen to have was the fact that we could have name blinding on the recruitment system.
I think the name blinding was more, if I'm really honest, about ethnicity than it was about gender. But obviously, you know, as part of any gender pay gap report, it would be helpful to demonstrate that. I mean, we don't have any problem recruiting women. There's nothing to suggest, when you've seen the percentages in the past, there's nothing to suggest that there is bias taking place. I do want to stress that. Also, just to point out that when we previously had a female chief executive and slightly more members of the leadership team were female, it hardly any difference whatsoever to our gender pay gap, because you're talking about a mean and an average. And as I just want to keep stressing, it's why it's more difficult is we are confident, and I hope you can see that the management development programs are going to be in place. That video that I've mentioned in planning is all about, you know, Sarah does a brilliant job. There is a man in there that shows the progression that he's made, but there are three female leaders on the video as well, or two leaders and one more junior member of staff. I don't think we've got any trouble attracting women or women being selected. But we have a gender pay gap because we're not great at attracting men into our lower paid jobs. And how do you manage to do that? By trying to present career opportunities. How long do they stay in those lower paid jobs before they progress on? Potentially less time because of the fact that they're able to take on more full-time opportunities and move around a little bit more easily. This is our challenge. But yeah, the management development program will be hopefully also supporting more women into, increasing what we've got in quartile 1 and quartile 2. But if our men remain that low, it's still going to end up with a gender pay gap.
Thank you. It's quite disappointing that this ATS that came in the name blinding isn't working. So it's just a case of waiting for them to come up. What is the problem? Oh yeah, losing key data from the CVs in the process.
Yeah, bizarrely, you would lose qualification data and other forms of data. So the product wasn't working sufficiently. We did test it, and then we had to make the decision: do we move to an online application form and allow the benefits, or do we keep waiting to solve the problem? So it is something that's being requested, and yeah, it is very disappointing. Not the best answer to say to members, but we got an amazing deal on the ATS. So we're not in a position where we can say we've spent lots of money on this product and how dare you. We effectively have a lower based advertising cost and the product included. So we are kind of beholden to when they do the development at this point.
Thank you. Councillor Newton.
Yes, it's rather interesting. Obviously, I've been lucky enough to be in the workplace for 45 years, 5 years off having my family. I still hope with all of this, and it's very reassuring, trying to get equality and equity. But I do hope the bottom line is that somebody gets a job because they can do it. And I just want to, all the time we're having these in-depth discussions, if they can do the job, it doesn't matter anything else. So that is the foremost bottom line, isn't it? They can do the job. Yeah.
Yeah.
ATS or not. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Newton. No, absolutely agree. And I think we are confident that we are a merit-based organisation, and as Councillor Bolton has pointed out, jobs are evaluated. There is no problem with equal pay here. People are paid for the right level for the job, and just to refer back to those market supplements, that's applied on the basis of the job again. So, no difference there is going to be arising either. And we have a good mix of female and male planners. So I think you know that yourself. So, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Dumont.
I just wanted to say on the back of this discussion, I think there's absolutely no evidence of bias at all. And I think that the looking at, I know it's the previous report, but it's the previous section on page 43, it talks about the percentages of people in certain job roles. And I don't think there's, as it stands, take these figures, there's nothing that the council's done a very good job. I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've got a lot to be proud of.
Thank you, Councillor Dumont. That's what I was actually, you reminded me what I was going to say just previously, is that we're required to publish the gender pay gap report, and then we're not required to explain necessarily, but you would obviously as an organisation want to explain, and that's why it's really important that we do the report. I know there's some duplication in the report that you receive and the main report, but you can't talk about the gap without trying to understand why there is a gap, and obviously at the same time reassuring that that gap isn't based on anything other than the spread in the organisation, particularly of men compared to women. And it's not that you're seeing that we're in domination at Q1 of men. It is the continued increasing domination really of female population internally as you move down the quartiles.
Thank you. Right, we've got no other comments. We'll move to the recommendations. They're on the first page 46. There we are. We'll take both recommendations together. Firstly, to note the gender pay gap report, and secondly, considering the action plan, adding further suggestions are appropriate, and agreeing the revised plan. Everyone, Yeah, you're proposing it, councillor Dumont. Thank you. And seconded by councillor McMullen. Thank you. Can we have a vote in favour, please? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. So we'll move on to agenda item number 9, the pay policy statement, page 69 of the agenda. There's going to be one recommendation. Do you want to speak to it?
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Yep. So this is it's that time of year where we ensure, in fact, the committee, you may realise, was moved back a week to ensure that we got this in time so that it could go on to council on the 1st of March. So the recommendation is that the pay policy statement be recommended for approval by council. Main point to point out is that the pay policy statement hasn't changed significantly. What we've done is updated with figures from the last 2 awards, which when we approved the pay policy statement last year, we didn't know. We have continued ever since we didn't have a 2-year pay deal to not know what the award is going to be at this point. But what this is a representation of the last 2 awards. If I point out section 3 in the report, and in particular, section 3.4, the main update to the pay policy statement has been to set out the pay awards for 21-22 and 22-23 that have been incorporated from the joint negotiating committee. That's the JNC for chief officers and the National Joint Council for all other employees. The annual leave table in section 9 has equally been updated because as part of the agreement with the NJC, and that's the NJC only, there was an agreement that there would be an additional day of annual leave added to each NJC post that came into effect from the 1st of April 2023. This pay policy statement governs the period the 1st of April 23 through to the 31st of March 24. So those tables have been updated. So we have incorporated that because it was agreed in last year's award. Everything else is based on the last 2 awards, and that's what the pay tables and the pay ceiling and everything else that you have got in the pay policy statement. It's a factual document. I think I've already pointed out that this is where the permission is given for the market supplements, and that's in section 7, if I believe I'm correct. I'm just checking as I say that. Yeah, section 7 is the market supplements. And you will see that the section 5.12 sets out our spread of grades. As an authority, we don't start from NJC scale 0.1, we start from scale 0.4. There is huge pressure again this year to deal with the national living wage. You will have noted that the last 2 awards were very late. The 21-22 came in right at the end of the pay period, which was March 22, and we did manage to incorporate that into payroll, which meant that people got their tax in the right year, but also didn't have the higher national insurance rates that were due to come out shortly afterwards. Secondly, we processed this year's award in the December payroll when that was agreed in November. So we are up to date currently, and the union pay claim has gone in for this year now. It was only received in the last 2 weeks, and once that pay award is achieved, then that will be reflected in the pay policy statement. If there's any questions, I can take them, but as I say, this is pretty much a factual document. No changes other than updating with the awards and the annual leave as I've described.
Any questions or comments? No, you don't have to. Councillor Alder.
Have you any indications at all as to what the award might be? You know, the whispers around.
I can tell you what the trade unions have claimed for.
Yes.
And I'm not going to be able to give you the full details off the top of my head, but I'll give you the percentage that they've asked for. So they've asked for RPI, which was 10.7% plus 2%. So they've asked for 12.7%. And the chief officer's claim mirrors the NJC claim, and they've also included that they want to have an additional day's annual leave, which the NJC claim includes as well, because you will have noted that I said NJC went up one day, so the JNC didn't go up, so that stayed, it was already higher before. That you can see that in the table, in table 9, or sorry, section 9. But yeah, the claim has come in. I think to say what councils were generally budgeting for would be more like 4%. So yeah, there's a tough journey ahead.
Difference.
Well, you will be aware of the requirements that we already have to make savings and transformation, and then alongside a significant claim. And I'm not here to comment on the union claim in terms of my personal opinion, but obviously you will have seen that strikes have been taking place, etc., etc. So yeah, I think local government is in for a rocky ride, just like the other sectors in public sector have been.
Councillor Bull.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Are the staff encouraged to do value added contribution for pensions, or is that non-existent these days?
I think that has been looked at. That I'm not aware that we're currently running a scheme for that, but people can choose to do that through the local. We're members of the local government scheme, which is the Herts County scheme. So it's up to the individual member to take up those options if they wish to.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? No, in that case, we'll move to the recommendations, which is on page 69, that the pay policy statement 2023-24 be recommended for approval by council. Can we have a proposer for that, please? Councillor Bull and a seconder. Councillor Alder. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Item number 10, the Human Resources and Payroll Team Update Report, 3rd quarter, from page 85 of the agenda. Do you want to say anything before any questions?
Yeah, happy to just take questions. It's an information paper. Obviously, you didn't get your update paper at the last meeting. I think you got a verbal update. A number of the items that were given to you verbally have been included. You will have noted that we are looking at payroll succession. That does actually include exploring the option of whether we should be trying to outsource our payroll. I'm not saying that's what we're going to do, but that is a task that has been asked to be explored, because there is an over-reliance on our payroll manager, and we do have a fixed term member of staff that's come back to help, but that can't carry on forever. And we've looked at a career graded succession post, but at the same time we're exploring outsourcing as well. The services provided to Broxbourne have now stopped as they've recruited to their posts. And then there's an update around, in fact, the HR system has been used, because I mentioned to you the additional days annual leave in the pay policy statement. We at East Herts don't have an annual leave year that runs from 1st of April through to 31st of March. So a financial annual leave year we do not have. We have a rolling leave year, which is based on your start date. So Emily has used the system to prorata. So people, if they have a start date, say of 1st of January, would have got 3/4 of a day's leave added to their leave year from January, because it doesn't come in until April. Just to give an example. So that's all been done. Yeah, if there's any questions on the paper, I think also just note, because it came up in the previous, is that the recruitment process is being looked at by the Six Sigma people at the moment to look at if that can be improved in terms of end-to-end process. We're not using the ATS for onboarding because it hasn't proved to be successful for that at this point. We believe that the personal touch provided by our HR administrator is actually more appropriate for an organisation the size of East Herts as well. Sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Alder.
Thank you. And I applaud that approach. I think it's so sensible to do it that way, because in other organisations where they have a fixed leave time, you've got January from about February to the end of March, it's usually the year, when everybody's on leave or people want to carry it forward. So I think, gold star to the department for doing that. I think really sensible. Pity other organisations don't do the same thing.
Thank you,
And,
Councillor Ward. It does cause us a few complications. I will admit that, but no, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dumont.
So it's probably not within the remit of a member or this committee to know why you're looking at it from a Six Sigma point of view, but it will be probably because there's a problem to be fixed. That's the idea of it. You need a problem statement to.
It's more looking at how efficient it is, because what we know in recruitment, and this is definite, you know, you've seen with the vacancies in planning, is you have to be hot to trot, or whatever the right phrase is. You know, you will lose candidates, so that's why.
So I was talking about payroll.
Oh, in payroll purposes, yeah, the process wasn't seen as inefficient, but it was seen as heavily reliant on one individual. So it's about making sure that we've got a greater backup, really, I guess.
Okay, so I just think
Also making more effective use of our system as well. Sorry.
people getting paid and having access to their payroll manager, if payroll issues go wrong, can be very stressful for people. And it's quite often a problem that they'll want fixed very quickly. So if we're looking at outsourcing it, we just need to be absolutely sure that's the right thing to do, and absolutely sure that we get the right service for our employees, and we don't end up with someone who hasn't been paid has to raise a ticket and wait 3 days for someone to get back to them, and that we don't lose that personal service. Because I do have experience with some of these companies and they make mistakes, and getting them fixed can be wrong, and that is really not good for our staff's well-being. So we need to be absolutely sure if we're going down that route, we're picking the right provider. And that really has to be, in my opinion, a last route to move something, that person to staff out of house. There really needs to be a good reason to do that.
Thank you. Councillor Newton.
I agree with you about personal touch. Going through a portal or online or finding your details and doing the work yourself is all very well if you know how to do that. And it also is okay if you know how it's been put in the system. And if you have a double barrel name or a name with a little dash, and you'll find that the first name space dash space second name is what's in the system, not first name dash second name. Trust me, we've been through this, and it took about a week to work out why the computer was saying no. So I agree with you. It's all very well getting people to do their own work for the payrolls by going through a portal and online, but sometimes you just need to talk to somebody, and that's got to remain. And there's got to be an officer who's not off on the Friday, so they can't access anything to print out until the Monday, because, you know, they only do 4 days. These are the smooth running issues of this.
We've been asked to make the exploration via the head of paid service, the chief exec, because he's had questions asked to him from members, you know, who believe there's an opportunity to potentially save some money in terms of cost. Obviously, we'll be looking at quality alongside cost, and in particular, you need to weigh up what resource you still need internally in order to get the join up, because that can also be a complication and something that, you know, you can get a price per pay slip, but what do you need to ensure that you're getting the communication across? You know, we've got an integrated HR and payroll system. I think it is, you know, we've have an exceptional payroll manager. We've been very lucky, and we've had, you know, very good results with our payroll. So this is not something that will be done lightly. And I appreciate the committee's comments to say that you need to weigh everything up, and not just what it might look like on cost basis, but actually what the quality of service will be too. And my assurance to you would be that we would be seeking case studies, and we will be looking for somebody that's hopefully worked with a local authority and understands our particular nuances, you know, before progressing anything.
Yeah, I just think just one last point, if you will, and then I'll be done, Chairman. I think it might be yourself, Councillor Ruffles, raised it before. You know, the purpose of what we do here is obviously not operational, but it's to give a steer. And I think for me, it'd be a very strong steer as part of this committee to take the most cautious approach to outsourcing payroll.
Thank you. 4.10, the management training. Can I just say it's good to see the two levels, the first step and blueprint, and that it's all two clear levels and it's all coming together. So thank you very much for getting that, because that must have been quite a big piece of work, I imagine.
Yeah, so I mean, Ellie Starling led on the first step stuff and actual the paper setting out the two levels. But yeah, I have developed the first 5 days for blueprint and will be personally delivering that myself. So yeah, looking forward to it. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Are we done? This is just for receiving this paper, so we'll receive that. On to the last item agenda, which is urgent business. I haven't been notified of any if anyone's got any. So that's it. Thank you very much. That's the end of that. Thank you and good evening.